So there have been a few things happening in the news recently, or just, yeah, that I want to talk about economically. And I really want to talk about, first, I want to define what capitalism is, because the narrative that I often hear is capitalism is evil. Our problem, everything, the problem we have is with capitalism. And I challenge that because capitalism is just a theory. It is an economic theory. In practice, it has been used to, particularly in the United States, which was adopted globally, particularly after 1776 when we became a free country. The founding fathers who knew of the work of Adam Smith and other economists globally who were thinking about what capitalism or what the economy could be, because they didn't even use the word capitalism. But but here in the United States, we took the idea of what I'm going to define, what is defined as capitalism, and we bastardized it because we had to, one, justify the annihilation of indigenous people, and two, justify the enslavement of Africans. And to placate, or I'm not even gonna say placate, because people want to keep saying it was the South. It wasn't the South. The North benefited from the South having slaves. That's just the truth. And we don't want to tell that history. So I'm just going to read to you what the definition of capitalism is. And then I want to talk about something specific that I've been seeing over the last few days. Capitalism is an economic system where private individuals or businesses own and control property and production, aiming to generate profit through competitive markets. It is categorized by private property, capital accumulation, and wage labor, with prices determined by supply and demand. That's one definition. Another definition is an economic system based on primarily private, individual, corporate investment in and ownership of the means of production, distribution, and exchange of goods and wealth, contrasted with socialism or especially communism, in which the state has the predominant role in the economy. When people talk about capitalism in its purest form, it is not what they're talking about. It is just, as I said, a definition of a theory. It is how it's been implemented, implemented, I'll just use that word, around the globe. That is made, it's not inherently, let me put it this way. It is not inherently discriminatory. Capitalism is not inherently coercive. Capitalism is not inherently exploitative. Capitalism is not inherently rooted in supremacy. It is those individuals who took those ideas to create a capitalist system or economic system, and they had to justify their own superiority, the contradictions of their morality and ethics with the reality that the United States would not have become the dominant power that it has been all these years, were it not for the annihilation of indigenous people and the enslavement of Africans. And so the thing that I want to talk to you about is, because I've been seeing so much of this recently, and all it can be, and when I've been witnessing it, I'm like, this is nothing more than conspicuous consumption. And I'm going to give you the definition, and then I'm going to talk about these examples of what I'm talking about, because what I'm trying to figure out, again, I developed the profit without oppression economic theory, which is rooted in supremacy-free, coercion-free, discrimination-free, and exploitation-free. And just like I said, capitalism was a theory, and in practice, it was used to justify all these harms. Currently, profit without oppression is just a theory, and I am trying to use real-world examples to see what the practice would look like. I don't even know if it can exist in this world, but I want to try. And so conspicuous consumption is what I've been seeing a lot. And that definition is, in sociology and economics, the term conspicuous consumption describes and explains a practice of buying and using goods of a higher quality, price, or in greater quantity than practical. What I want to talk about, there are three examples. So one is, I want to go to the Kendrick Lamar concert. I really want to go to the Kendrick Lamar concert. The tickets are at a minimum $150 for concerts. I would love to have that experience, but is that, again, that's practice of buying goods and using goods of a higher quality price and a greater quantity than practical. So right now, my financial situation does not make that practical. So I am not buying that ticket. But then I look at what just happened in Coachella, what's happening in Coachella right now. And the articles that are saying that 60% of those individuals have put their experience, I'll call that an experience, they've used a buy later process. So if the tickets are $500 and people, they're saying at average, because you have to have food and you have to have a place to stay, people are spending $1,000 on something they can't afford. And I truly believe in experiences, but now particularly when I'm looking at all these young people who are out there, and 60% of them are financing a concert experience. And the third example I want to share is all the people who are talking about the TikTokers in China who they're like, oh, they're debunking luxury. It's not really debunking luxury if you understood about economics that many of these things are not made in the country. They go to the country to get finishing. Many of these places do not have the raw material. So of course, this stuff is happening somewhere else. But to extend that to don't buy this $30,000 bag, but if you want this bag, buy it for us for $1,000. It's still conspicuous consumption, because if you needed a purse, you can go and get a $30 purse. And so I'm trying to frame that within this idea and understanding and knowing that I have that there are business owners who just want to, we've been indoctrinated, particularly in the business environment, that money scale. And that is the goal. That is, it's not about, it's not about, and you can see it with the private equity firms, right? Not about the products or service you sell. It is about going to Y Combinator and trying to figure out the most lucrative idea. It's not coming from people who have a passion about something. And this is not about an absolute, but this is the dominating narrative we're seeing. Find that thing that you're interested in or that problem you want to solve that would help millions of people who want to pay for it. It's come from find that idea that's most lucrative and then retrofit it to create a product or service that people will buy based on that idea that you already know is lucrative. That's why in the city that I live in, which is not pedestrian friendly, had at least five electric scooter companies in it at one time. It's like, we don't even have sidewalks. Why the hell do we have electric scooters when people are going to have to ride in the streets? Makes absolutely no sense. And so I'm trying to figure out how to have a conversation about profit without oppression, have a conversation that leans into those business owners and entrepreneurs who are interested in solving problems and creating businesses and incomes for themselves and in situations and experiences for themselves where they're able to enjoy their lives, comfortably take care of themselves and the people and the things they love, vacation, without it being rooted in my business has to be rooted or marketed in a way for people who you don't need this thing. But I don't want to say that's wrong, right? Who am I to say that you going to Coachella and financing it is wrong? This is not a right or wrong situation. So let me stop here because I want you to understand when I'm having these things, I'm not saying yes or no, right or wrong, black or white. There's so much nuance. What I do is want to start having these questions, having these conversations, because people treat things so, again, very binary, and they're not binary. But if we don't have these conversations, we'll never get to a place that is rooted in supremacy-free, coercion-free, discrimination-free, and exploitation-free, because we have never examined it. And that is why so many theories in practice fail, because they haven't been tested, they haven't been examined. People aren't asking the questions, people aren't challenging, people aren't trying to kick the tires and see what the dents and stuff are. And that's what I want with profit without oppression. I don't know if this shit is gonna work, but I know that there has to be an option for people who really, because I am a business, I can come up with a business idea and strategy at a drop of a hat. I see a problem, I want to solve it. And that's just who I am. I'm not in it because, hell, it would be so much easier if I could have stayed in education because that's pension, that's guarantees. Our kids got on my nerves, but that was guaranteed, right? And so to take this risk, I want to have a conversation. I want to figure out how people who choose to take this risk, who are excited about taking this risk, how can we do this in ways that are don't require us to subordinate our ethics, our morals, our values, right? That we can build something that at its root, at its foundation, the intention and strategy is supremacy-free, coercion-free, discrimination-free, and exploitation-free. That doesn't mean we won't make mistakes. That doesn't mean we won't fuck up. But then we have a risk management and the crisis management process ready when those things happen. How do we do that when everything about our economic systems globally is consumed? And not just consumed, it is consumed at quantities, at qualities that are often not only not necessary, but on the far end, detrimental to us living a life where we feel economically secure, economically comfortable, because now we're stressed out about money and all those kind of things. So that's where, that's what I want to talk about today. Again, conspicuous consumption and just challenging this idea that capitalism is bad or evil. Yeah.